You know, when people say, "What?" I get it because my hearing's a little rusty and I wear hearing aids. But there's not only a physical deafness, which cuts people off from social life. There's also a kind of hardness of hearing where God is concerned, and this is something that we particularly suffer for in certain times, and we have to own it. Put simply, we're no longer able sometimes to hear God. There are too many different frequencies filling our ears. What is said about God strikes us as sometimes maybe pre-scientific or perhaps immature or no longer suited to our age. When we speak about faith, sometimes people can't hear us. And along with this hardness of hearing or outright deafness, where God is concerned, we naturally lose our ability to speak to Him, to converse with Him, and so we end up losing our inner senses. There is that story in the gospel where, among all these other cures that we hear today, where Jesus puts His finger into the ears of the deaf mute. You remember that story? He touches the man's tongue with spittle and says the word Ephatha, be opened. Well, that word, Ephatha, the evangelist chooses and preserves so that we can almost walk into the situation. And the gospel is like that today as well. You can almost feel as if you are there, walking behind Jesus. What happened back then was unique, but these cures does not belong only to a distant past. Jesus continues to do wonderful things, even in our day. At our baptism, you were touched, and the priest said, Ephatha, be opened, enabling us to hear God's voice and to be able to speak back to Him, to carry on this conversation, which is part of our daily prayer. There's nothing magical about what takes place in the sacrament of baptism, but it is certainly otherworldly and mystical. And baptism opens up a path before us. It makes us part of the community of those who are able to hear and to speak to God. It brings us into that fellowship with Jesus Himself, who alone has seen God's face and is able to speak to Him face to face. Through faith, Jesus wants to share with us His seeing God, His hearing the Father, so that that conversation can be more deeply a part of our lives. As we pray and offer this Mass today for those who are sick, those who are struggling with devastating illness, let's open our hearts to God's presence with us, our ears to hear His words of comfort, and allow this conversation that we have, this prayer that we share right now, be of help to all those who are sick, especially if you are one of them.